Coming up on City Spotlight, we're on location in Arthur at the Moultrie-Douglas County Fair. We'll talk with the Mayor of Arthur, Matt Bernius, about new businesses in Arthur. We will also talk about the fair with Mayor Bernius and Moultrie-Douglas County Fair Board President Lyle Dorjahn. That's all next on City Spotlight. City Spotlight is supported by Consolidated Communications. CCI is honored to salute the cities and their leaders in the area, as well as providing TV, internet, and phone service to local homes and businesses. We live where we work and are proud to support the communities we serve. More information available at consolidated.com. And welcome to another edition of City Spotlight. We're on location in Arthur at the Moultrie-Douglas County Fair. I'm joined by the Mayor of Arthur, Matt Bernius.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Glad to have you on again, and great to be in Arthur. These on-location shoots are a lot of fun, and we have the fair as our backdrop, and we'll talk plenty about the fair as we go along here in this show. But off the bat, Matt, I want to ask you about the Illinois state budget. We're taping this on July 15th here, and about 2 weeks ago, a stopgap budget, however you want to call it, was kind of passed. And just curious, Matt, over the past year, how has the village of Arthur dealt with the lack of a state budget in the state of Illinois, and how has it affected what you guys do?
Well, thankfully, a lot of our income is not derived from the state budget. You know, our motor fuel tax and things like that we depend on, of course, and they've done what they can to get those funds released and to us. And so, overall, we just depend on you know, sales tax and property tax, and we're doing really well. Local businesses are thriving, and so our actual revenue is up, and so we're doing very well, and luckily we're not as dependent on the state budget as some of the other taxing bodies, you know, like the schools and stuff are. So we're doing pretty good.
Excellent. And some other towns that I've talked to recently, I think Arcola was our last show, and we talked about having to dip into some other reserves to help them out. You haven't had to go that route in any way, have you?
No, nope, absolutely not.
Okay, very good. Let's talk about some of those good things going on in Arthur, and one thing we want to talk about is industry. Manufacturing is looking to hire, and things are going well there.
Yes, of course, Arthur's known to have a lot of manufacturing plants. I guess, you know, during the day, you know, Arthur swells from a community of about 2,300 to probably somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 easily, just with all the manufacturing. So we do have a lot of jobs. The last conversations I've had with a couple of the big manufacturers here in town is that they're expanding. They're adding new technologies to their business. They're investing in their businesses here in Arthur because they know the workforce is good, and they continue to hire and look for good qualified candidates and employees to come to work in Arthur. So.
And Arthur being the location, a lot of those manufacturing places, but you have, obviously, as we've talked about, people from around the communities, Moultrie, Douglas, everywhere, that come to Arthur and
absolutely, it's
call it their place of
There's a lot of people that drive here every day, so we're very thankful for that.
And let's talk a little bit about new businesses in Arthur, and also I think there was a couple of those along with one place that was renovated.
Yeah, we just had one business close, a long time clothing store downtown closed, Delbert's, and you know, we were sorry to see them go, but that building is actually transformed. Part of it's an art gallery, the other part opened up into a frozen yogurt. It's a business called the Tasty Cup, and it's kind of exciting on the weekends to see you know, the lines on the sidewalk, people getting in there. They've just really done a fantastic job of renovating that building, and to think that a small town of Arthur has got a business like that, it draws a crowd. In fact, I just talked to the owner this morning, and he had several people that were in town for the fair last night that came up there and had plans of traveling on today and staying somewhere else, but decided to stay in Arcola so they could visit the new wildlife park that's going on out there. So there's a lot of exciting things going on in this area, so it's a good time to be in this community.
And we talked about the Aikman Wildlife Park in our most recent episode on Arcola, but it's something that also, sandwiched between Arcola and Arthur, it affects both communities. Is a nice new asset to Douglas County. Mm-hmm. Very good. And let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned how a lot of what you guys have done in the last year, you spent on infrastructure, a lot of money and efforts, and talk about the infrastructure that you guys have been working on over the past year or so.
Currently, we just passed approved to get a capital improvement plan together. We hired a firm, the Farnsworth Group, They're going to come in and do a study for us. You know, we'd had a consultant come in. We'd actually taken a look at selling or divesting our water and sewer facilities, and you know, we continue to look at opportunities to fix some of the aging infrastructure and problems that we have. And so one of the things with putting together this capital improvement plan will be a big step. Other than that, last year our big investment was we put a new public works building up, something that's been needed for probably 30 years. This building, it's all steel structure. It's a nice investment, commitment to our employees. It'll enable them to do their jobs better. Just a real nice deal, and it'll be around for years to come. So
I know of a couple of other communities that we've talked about in City Spotlight. They're looking at new public works building. Those are things that you don't necessarily add every year. So
no, I mean, it's one of those things that you know, you've got to have a facility to where you can take care of your equipment, you know, and be able to get it in the winter and the different elements that you work in. That way, it's ready to go and service the community when it's needed. So I think our employees are really glad that we've got it, and it's, like I said, it's been needed, and so we're very fortunate to be able to do that. Didn't borrow any money, paid for it 100%. So feel pretty good about that.
Win-win for Arthur there. Yeah. It's been open since last spring, March of 2015. Also, one thing that we've talked about a couple times is the multi-phase subdivision work there. Where's that going?
Our subdivision on North Vine, Meadowview subdivision. We've got 3 more phases. We're going to probably put out bids to, we looked at trying to sell it to a developer, didn't get any bids that we felt like we could sell it for. So I guess we're going to go ahead and finish developing it on our own. Probably going to look to put those bids out sometime in the very near future, maybe early fall.
Okay, very good. And another thing you want to talk about, resurfacing Main Street a little bit?
Yeah, that's we're going to spend a lot of money this fall. The entire southwest part of town, we're going to grind and mill those roads, reshape them, and put in oil and chip. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to take Main Street. We're going to go from Park all the way to the railroad tracks at just past Progress. So right. That's heck of an investment, but it's needed for the downtown, and it should help the traffic and everything downtown, but clean it up a little bit.
Excellent, very good. Any other updates to Arthur before we talk about the fair a little bit?
Just that, of course, this fall we've got a couple things coming up. We've got the Mennonite Relief Sale in August, and of course our Cheese Festival Labor Day weekend. So I'll always look forward to people coming out and seeing the community.
Awesome, so. Very good. And as you can probably tell, the backdrop, we got some fair rides. They're not in motion right now, but we're at the Moultrie-Douglas County Fair, and I've been here over a couple of days, Matt, and last night I saw you over there at the tractor pull, and the fair to this community and Moultrie-Douglas, all the communities surrounding, it's a big part of some of these people's lives, and it's a great thing to check out.
Yeah, it is. It's a big draw. People that are involved in the county fairs, and fortunate, you know, that the board members on this fair, the fair board, have been able to keep this one going. You know, it's a thankless job. They put in a lot of hours. A lot of people take vacation time to come out here and do what they do, and we're very appreciative of them doing that and keeping this thing going. The state budget's one of the things that probably affect them more than it does us, and unfortunately they've tagged some of that spending on to the county fairs, and it's one of those things that we definitely need. The kids that come out and show their animals in the 4-H, and just the ag presence of a county fair is needed, and I'm sure glad that we have the folks that have pushed through and been able to keep ours going. So it's a draw for the community. It's Moultrie-Douglas County, but of course Arthur. It's one of those things that the local community people look forward to every year. We have the Women's Club has a stand here in town. That's one of their major fundraisers to come out here during the week and work. And so it's kind of neat to see all those people pitching in. And you know, they do the job. They work out there, raise funds for the scholarships and other things that they do for the community. So it gives them an opportunity to give back and work together at the same time. So
we'll talk more in depth about the fair with Lyle Dorjahn, fair president, here in just a little bit. And Lyle has seen plenty of those, so we'll dive into more of the history and some of the other things going on with the fair. What are some of your favorite things about the fair, Matt?
The tractor pull, of course, the demolition derby, it'll be tonight. and you know, just those aspects of it. My daughter participated in the pageant this year, and so that's a big draw. It's kind of a different deal, but and then the merchants building with the antique tractors, and so there's something for everyone out here. Of course, you can't beat the fair food. So.
And that's something I've been hearing a lot about is you can't beat the fair food anywhere you go. Big time of year for Arthur, a lot of events throughout the year. You have the Freedom Celebration, and then you have the County Fair, all kind of sandwiched within a couple weeks span, kind of the peak of the year. The efforts of the townsfolk here in Arthur, and just a lot of people coming through the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't realize it, but Arthur is kind of the hub. You know, we do our Freedom Celebration, which you know, small communities don't do it like we do. It's a big draw. And so we have to pull in, put all of our police officers on duty. We rely on our public works employees to get out and put barricades up. We call in county, both Moultrie and Douglas County, to assist with the Freedom Celebration. This year we had the director of the state police. It's a big deal. It draws in a lot of people, and very fortunate that it continues to grow. And then, like I said, we get a little bit of a break, and then boom, we're hit with the fair. And again, we have to put all of our police on duty. We keep 1 or 2 officers out here at all times, and then we have a duty car that's still taking care of stuff in town. So it's a commitment for Arthur. We're glad to do it. Our number one priority is our citizens and keeping them safe, but we also want to make sure that the guests to our community are provided for as well. So we try to do everything we can to make sure that their visit to Arthur is a memorial one.
And I've had a memorable experience here myself, taping over the couple days here at the fair, and it's been a pleasure talking with the mayor of Arthur, Matt Bernius, again. And once again, thank you for coming on City Spotlight.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. And coming up next on City Spotlight, we'll talk more about the Moultrie-Douglas County Fair with Lyle Dorjahn, County Fair President. But first, let's take a look at some of the upcoming activities going on in Arthur. And we continue on here on City Spotlight on location in Arthur at the Moultrie-Douglas County Fair, and we're going to talk with Lyle Dorjahn, the Moultrie-Douglas County Fair Board President. I got it right, Lyle?
There you go.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us on City Spotlight.
Our pleasure.
Excellent. And I've been here at the County Fair for a course of a couple days, and I've ran into Lyle numerous times, and you're everywhere, Lyle. You told me before we taped here a couple days ago that you would call yourself a fair rat.
Pretty much so. My father dumped me out here on this fairgrounds when I was 10 years old in 1967. Not to date myself, but I'm doing what I love to do. And I think what we do here is pretty important, not just for the community, but also for the junior livestock and just junior kids as a whole.
Now, you told me you're originally from Atwood.
Yeah.
But you've been always coming to the Moultrie-Douglas Fair, and what are some of your earliest memories here? You just said your first time was 10 years old, but what are some of your early memories of the fair?
I was the junior showmanship swine winner in 1967. That's one of my earliest memories. But a couple of years after that, there was an event that goes down in Arthur lore and history, and that was the year Johnny Cash showed up here. And what was interesting about that is that the year I won that swine showmanship trophy, he was supposed to be here and didn't show up. And they held him to his contract. He came back 2 years later. Well, in 2 years, a little ditty called A Boy Named Sue had become the #1 hit song in America. He had a hit TV show on CBS every week, a variety show, and he shows up here with the Carter family, and the whole, it was like the TV show came to Arthur. For miles north, south, east, and west, there were cars on both sides of the road. If tour buses from everywhere, I remember it well. I mean, you couldn't stir them with a stick out here on the carnival. And if there'd been a fire in town, the whole town would have burnt because the fire trucks couldn't get through the streets.
Unbelievable.
Hopefully this year we'll do as well as we did that day. But that's one of the famous days in Moultrie-Douglas County Fair history.
That was a question I was going to ask you a little later on, but quite a story, and you've had a lot of great entertainers, musicians that come through county fairs, and people remember some of the more notable ones. And Johnny Cash kind of tops it with some of the country greats that you've had. Merle Haggard, I saw in the Merchant Building as I was walking through this case, so showing some of that here of some of the past entertainers that have come through.
It's a who's list of country music. I mean, it looks like we're in Nashville when you look at that case you're talking about, and the performers that have been here. It's rather incredible that all those people have filtered through Arthur over the years.
All right, very good. Let's come back to how long have you been the fair president? How long have you been doing things with the fair?
As a young adult, I always came and helped manage the swine show. And then we were gone for about 25 years in other parts of the state, professional, doing our other stuff, which is in the swine business. And we moved back in 2000, and it was a year or two after that I became a fair board member, and 2003 was my first year as board president.
Okay, very good. And let's talk about briefly some of the history of the fair. This is the 86th edition of the Moultrie-Douglas County Fair, this July of 2016. It's always been going on here in Arthur. What's some of the history that you can tell us about?
Well, I like to tell people that, you know, Arthur's become famous not only for this and Johnny Cash, but we have lots of street festivals.
Right.
The fair was Arthur's original street festival because when they first started having it, it was on the grade school grounds uptown. And they put tents up in the street and a stage up on the school grounds, and it truly was a street festival. And in the early 60s, the Juergens family donated this ground mainly for the fair. They deeded it to the Arthur Park District to keep the maintenance and upkeep off the fair board's back. And as you can see now, we've got more ball diamonds than cattle barns, and that's all right because we've got a great working relationship with them, with the city board, and obviously the high school's right here as well. So it's an interesting alliance how four governing bodies all get together to pull together and do this community event.
All right, and how has the fair evolved through the years? There's probably a lot of traditional events that have stayed the same, but how has the fair evolved through the years?
Early on, it was an open, from a livestock perspective, it was open to adults, and in the early 40s, it became one of the first truly junior youth activities in the state, and has remained so ever since. We've had to change with the times. We depend more on corporate sponsorships than they did in the old days. State funding has obviously dropped significantly, and I understand that in the big picture of things, but what a lot of folks don't understand is that the amount of money that the Department of Ag has spent on county fair funding, and that's $3 or $4 million. We've got proof that has returned $170 million in taxable money flowing back into the state. And so the economic impact is incredible. We do more things like more off-season rentals. We host a couple of large primitive antique shows here. And last year, when we were, one evening when we came in here for that, I counted license plates from 15 different states who came to Arthur for the event that we hosted here. We've had to become more of an economic engine within our community. And we think that's a pretty important part of our mission, is to not just put on a fair once, during the year for 1 week, but to try to do those other things that are economically viable for our community.
Okay, and a big part of the county fair, something that you definitely want to talk about, are the livestock shows. I've seen firsthand the Gilton Swine Show, and before we started taping here, the Sheep Show. I know that you want to talk about the Junior Livestock Program and its importance.
That's what I grew up with. I mean, my dad grew up with it. My wife and I started dating here, for crying out loud. She showed cattle. We brought our kids through it, and that was one of my grandsons that had the Grand Champion Barrow the other night. And so they're coming up in it also. I don't think there's a better place to raise kids than a livestock barn at a county fairgrounds, because they get to meet great people. It's great family activities. Most of the people that come to these events, whether it's cattle, sheep, or pigs, their kids don't play summer baseball. They don't belong in a soccer league. This is what they do, and travel throughout the country, because what I've seen is that it has mushroomed into even a bigger event nationally than I ever thought it would be, especially when I was a kid. but the interaction, what happens is these kids begin building their network, because so many of them go ahead and forge careers in agriculture, and truly I think we're molding the leaders of the next generation right here at grassroots level in places like Arthur, Illinois at the Moultrie-Douglas County Fair.
So a valuable experience, and they're getting their feet wet for bigger things.
Yes.
And we'll talk with the grand champion from the Gilt Show later in the program, 16-year-old girl from Witt, Illinois. So queen pageants, tractor pulls, demolition derbies, fair rides, fair food, all make up a county fair, Lyle. As we wrap up here, what are some other things you'd like to add about the fair or share with us?
You touched on the queen contest. Sandy Hoke, our pageant director, does a great deal of work managing that event. She's also involved with the County Fair Association at a state level. And I look at that queen contest kind of like the junior livestock shows. We're helping. I've seen so many of our girls that have won that were, they won, but by the time they get to state convention in January, the transformation, the confidence, their ability to interact with people improves immensely. And I really think that queen contest is almost as important of a youth building tool as what we're doing back here.
So the fair is a molding for the youth that compete, whether it be in the queen pageant or in the livestock program. So the youth are able to grow from that. What are some other things that you're proud of, Lyle, about this county fair?
That we're still here.
and Mayor Matt Bernius talked about how the state budget affects things like the fair more than some of the municipalities and the things they do. So
we've probably had to make some decisions over the last 15 years that maybe weren't the most popular, even within our fair board. But the things that we did were things that we had to do to remain fiscally responsible and economically viable, and to continue to do this year after year. And I know, having been involved at the state level with county fair activities, there's other fairs that maybe things aren't going quite as well as they are here in Arthur. And that's just a testimony to the hard work that our fair board has put in to continue to do this.
And I think it was the last question I asked Mayor Matt Bernius was about the community, and it's a busy time of year for Arthur, a lot of events. You have the Freedom Celebration, and then a couple weeks later, you have the county fair, the efforts of the local community to make these things happen.
Without volunteers, this would never happen. Volunteers and either time and in some cases money. Our corporate sponsor, our main one, CHI Overhead Doors out here on the east edge of town, and they sponsor all three of the big concerts this week. Tim Miller and the group out there have just been fantastic. Tim and his wife Monica have always been great friends of the fair, and what we've been able to do the last 3 years with them has just been tremendous. We're completely indebted to CHI for their support.
And last comments, Lyle, anything else you'd like to add here as we wrap up here with you?
We're going to keep doing this as long as we can. I think it helps keep us young. But we believe in county fairs. We believe that they are truly, from a 4-H FFA perspective, that they're a grassroots time and place for kids and families to grow up. Where else can you go and ride rides and eat fair food and do it at a reasonable price? I mean, you know what it costs to go to Six Flags, and it doesn't cost that to come to Arthur and play with us for a night and see great entertainment at a reasonable price. So we're just going to keep rocking on, and we'll do her again next year.
It's been an absolute pleasure to be out here over the course of this week of the 86th Moultrie-Douglas County Fair. And Lyle Dorjahn, Moultrie-Douglas County Fair Board President, thank you for joining us on City Spotlight.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Excellent. And as we wrap up this episode of City Spotlight on location in Arthur, let's take a look at some of the sights and sounds from the 86th Moultrie-Douglas County Fair.
It's going to be the young lady still here to my left. I think this one's so good in terms of her build and how she gets about.
What brought me to the fair is always one of my favorite fairs to come out to. We travel a lot around the summer, showing at other county fairs, and my uncle, of course, brought me. I've been showing animals or pigs for 4 years. I love getting a connection with my pigs and taking them throughout the summer to all different kinds of shows and having that special bond with them. Every day we walk and wash our pigs and make sure they're getting exercise and they're getting fed right and that they're feeling well, and make sure especially that they're out there and getting worked on.
How would you describe how you and the pig work together?
They learn as you work with them every day. They get more and more tame, and you especially have to work with them, because if you don't, they'll just run everywhere, and as you walk with them and work with them every day, they just connect with you and start working well with you.
To be named grand champion, what does that mean to you?
It's an amazing feeling. I couldn't do it without the support of my family and friends, of course, and all they do for me and help me outside of the show ring and everything they do to get me in there.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Faith Hardwick, and I am your 2016 Junior Miss Moultrie-Douglas. Thank you.
What's your earliest memory of coming to the fair?
Probably riding the tilder whirl and corn dogs. It's a good thing for the families to come out and enjoy themselves, and it's county fair has been around for years, and it's always good for a small hometown like this.
How long have you been competing in the tractor pull?
Personally, I've been doing about 4 years. My dad's been doing about 25, 30 years. For me, it's the tractor pull, but this fair has always been pretty special. I've grown up in Arthur, and just a good hometown feel here.
City Spotlight is supported by Consolidated Communications. CCI is honored to salute the cities and their leaders in the area, as well as providing TV, internet, and phone service to local homes and businesses. We live where we work and are proud to support the communities we serve. More information available at consolidated.com.